Hey folks, Matt Sharp here with another Pacific Angler Friday Fishing Report. We're filming for early June, so if it's nowhere near early June, click up here. This is a link to all the Friday Fishing Reports. We do it most weeks, so I should have something up to date for you. June is a cool time. We get to take what we learned in May and put it into practice when it comes to interior lakes. And note that the interior lakes are fishing really well right now because things have remained cool. We're starting to see a really diverse bug hatch, and we've got details on that, what to expect, how to load your fly boxes, as well as I've got some cool flies from Andre for the Hail Mary, oh my God, we got glassworms, which is something that happens this time of year. He's got a fly that he says doesn't cure the plague, but it'll get you in the game, get you a few fish on the board in this condition. We're going to share that at the back end of the report, so lake guys, stay tuned for that. And Sterling has a bunch of details on what we've heard on the lakes, and there's been a bunch of folks getting out lake fishing, and we expect it to still be good throughout the next week. We're obviously going to look at the weather and how that affects everything, but the big focus this week is a little bit farther out. July is a big month for fishing around Vancouver because it's time for trout fishing. It's time when you get to channel your inner Brad Pitt and put on the river runs through it hat and get out there. But this year we've got some caveats. Unfortunately, the floods have made a number of our rivers inaccessible right now, and there's going to be some information, some detailed information. I've reached out to the Parks Board, I've reached out to park rangers, I've tried to figure out what is going to happen. I don't have all the answers, but I do have some good information to share with everybody. And then there might be a call to action coming forward of how we might be able to help to speed up the process to fixing the damage that had to do with the floods that is going to directly impact access to some of our trout streams. We're also going to talk about some water levels on those so you guys can plan trips, because if you're like me, you can't take every Thursday, Friday, Saturday off fishing. Yes, there's some kids at the shop that get to do that. I hate them, but we might have to plan a little bit farther out to maybe score some brownie points with the family so you can make it happen. And if you're planning a trip in July, you're going to want to stay tuned when it comes to the Vetter, when it comes to the Skagit, when it comes to the Thompson, when it comes to the Birkenhead. We're going to touch base on snowpack levels and just take a look where we think things are going to fall so you guys can plan your trips successfully. Last but not least, I've got a cool one. When it comes to lake fishing, there are spots available for a really interesting course put on by Phil Raleigh at Skitchinelodge. Skitchinelodge is probably one of the best areas as a classroom for learning different lakes, because there's like a dozen plus lakes in the area that all have different tweaks. And usually this course is sold out tenfold, but this year there's some spots available. It's coming up soon. I'm gonna put the date right here. I'm gonna leave links in the description. If you guys want to get out early June with Phil, the conditions are perfect to go on this trip. Make sure you check that out. It's well worth it. It's not associated with Pacific Angler, but they are our friends, and I was shocked when I heard that there were spots available for something that's sold out years in a row. As always, guys, you want to see more fishing reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get into it. All right, so here we are. I've also got to say that in the written version of the report, we got some cool stuff this week. Ethan has a really cool piece on Fraser sturgeon fishing, looking at the water levels, but he's got a cool bait that looks really juicy, and he's been putting up some big fish in areas that big fish aren't known. So if you're a sturgeon guy, check that out in the written links in the description for that one. Taylor's got a piece on kokanee fishing worth checking out. It's a great time to do that, and again, because of this relatively cool spring, the kokanee fishing should continue really nicely into June. So check that out. And then Gavin's got a post-spawn bass for punching it. Post-spawn has been sort of hard to tack down because of the water temperatures that we've been seeing of relatively cool. But he's got some tactics, some things to look out for. If you're getting out bass fishing or want to learn about bass fishing, you definitely want to check that out. But let's talk about why we're here, and we're going to just quickly look at the weather first, because that sort of gives a really good gauge of where we're all coming from. And when we look at the Vancouver weather, I hate to say it, the weekend looks kind of crappy. I'm out casting tomorrow. I'm also going to be out feeding some fish. We've got some fish pen volunteer work that we're going to be doing. and it looks like Friday and Saturday are going to be wet, so bring your good rain gear. Reasonably warm, sort of 17s and 18s, but it's going to be wet, so it might not be the best to get out there. When you throw it up to the interior, it's a similar story with unsettled weather like lightning storms, that kind of thing. There should still be windows, but if you guys and girls can drag your heels into early next week, we're going to see 16s, 17s, and 20s, warm weather, stable weather with a little bit of sun and cloud. So this is going to be awesome if you guys want to get out beach fishing, if you guys got to get out to some of the local rivers, maybe hunt some early Capilano coho. The weather looks good for that, as well as getting lake fishing. If you can drag your heels on a camping trip, if you're stuck there the weekend and you can drag your heels into Monday, Tuesday, get the time off work, call in sick, just don't show up. I expect Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to be excellent lake fishing in the interior after things settle. Definitely worth looking at. One note, when things settle, the bugs don't kick in, but the fish do. So you might think about attractor patterns on that Monday / when things settle, or blobs or that kind of thing. It's super effective when the fish really turn on. They're super hungry, and we might see the perfect storm for that. Let's say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. When things settle out, we're going to hope for more bugs, and it should be a really diverse smorgasbord for the fish out there when it comes to mayflies, damsels, as well as chironomids. So make sure your boxes are stocked and you have the full gambit ready to go if you're heading out that way. But most of you guys didn't come to talk about lake fishing. We know it's doing well. We know it's worth getting out there for. Most of you guys and girls want to be looking at the Skagit. And before anyone gets too bent out of shape, the Skagit is a very well-known fishery. We are very careful about blowing up small fisheries. But if you guys take a Google search, and let's just do it right now for shits and giggles, but where are we here? Here we are, Vancouver Skagit fly fishing. That's what I've thrown into Google. First thing that comes up on the list is Skagit River trout fishing tips from Sea Run Tackle. This is actually a really good article. So no secrets there. Fly fishing Vancouver. Who is Fly Fishing Vancouver? I wonder who they are. Oh, it's Yost, it's Cromer. They don't even guide up on the Skagit, but they're obviously tagging that one. He's a wicked Squamish guide. But long story short, Skagit's no secret. It's probably the most classic trout stream we have close to Vancouver. It's where I learned to fly fish when I was 11 years old, and it's one that I encourage everyone to go take a look at. It's not easy. You're not going to catch a million. It's catch and release. You can't keep anything from it, and it's a long drive to get in there, and the bugs are horrible. So if you're a like-minded angler that doesn't mind those things like me, it's a really cool fishery to check out. If you're not a like-minded angler like that, you want to kill some fish and put them in the freezer, you don't like bugs, you don't like a long haul to get there, and you want really, really big fish, the Skagit's not for you. It self-moderates really nicely there, but a bunch of you love the Skagit, myself included, and unfortunately it got hammered this year by the storm. I shouldn't say it got hammered, it did rise a bunch. The river has changed in numerous areas when we're looking at satellite images of it, but the Silver Hope, the creek running in, the road running in from Hope, is absolutely obliterated. Now, if you guys want to learn more about this, there's actually this hilarious video on YouTube. I'm going to put links and maybe I'll play a little bit of it here.
So I've been getting a lot of questions on the road to Ross Lake. I put together a quick presentation and here we go. Great Forest, looking south, Skagit Valley. This is the first mess that's getting cleaned up as we speak, somewhere around 9 kilometers. Don't quote me on that. We built the bridge there. You can go watch the video. It's great, okay?
Long story short, this guy is the most Canadian commentator I've ever heard. I watched this video at first only concerned about the actual information on it, and then I listened to the commentary, and the guy has me cracking up. It is so Canadian, so truthful. The guys are using a bunch of sayings around the shop from this video. Even if you don't fish the Skagit, you guys want to hear the best Canadian commentary I have ever heard. Check this out. I'm going to put links up here, what the heck, and I'll put links in the description. I'll probably throw it to the back end of the report, but it is well worth a giggle, but it's well worth a look at what has happened, because the Silver Hope creek above the Silver Hope River has torched up the road to get in there. We do not think that getting past the projects that are going to happen are going to be very feasible for most people. The other kick is that the Skagit Valley Provincial Park is also going to be closed because of this. And this is a big problem in twofold. First off, it's a liability thing when it comes to them being able to get the park ready for everybody that might go and enjoy it. They don't take into consideration that we're fishermen and we're used to log jams across rivers and areas that are hard to get around, and that's sort of standard issue for when it comes to heading out on the water. They have to make it ready for park goers. So unfortunately, the liability is going to keep this park closed, I expect, for a long time. And so that means that you cannot legally go into the park from the Hope area because you do have to pass through parkland to get to the river. Now flip that around, there is another access point, which is through the Manning Park area. Now Manning Park is still open. But if we look at Samallo Grove is in Manning Park when you look at the lines. Just below it is the Skagit Park that will remain closed as far as I can tell, and I'm just speculating here. And then hilariously enough, the river has literally gone around the footbridge that gets you across the river in Manning Park. I'm going to throw pictures up here. I was laughing because of nature's power when it came to making a complete Randy. We're using Yuri's talk there if you want to check that video out. It's hilarious. But the long story short is this is going to make access very challenging, as well as access legally very challenging, because the second you step into the provincial park, the Skagit Provincial Park, you are in a closed park. Now, I have literally looked up the legislation when it comes to what happens when you're accessing a park that is closed. From my take, if a park ranger asks you to leave, you legally have to leave right away. Now, the flip side of that is what has to do with Navigable Waters Act of British Columbia. So if in Manning Park you can walk to the river, which is navigable, and then walk down the river, we feel that that is probably sound, but I can't make any legal advice. I've actually reached out to people in the province, had some very, very funny emails that really didn't answer any of my questions. They were very politically correct, kind of like Justin Trudeau answering questions when it comes to gun control. He's not really giving you any real information except talking points. That said, they got back to me quickly, and I am going to pursue it farther, where I've reached out to some actual rangers, some guys and girls that actually love fishing the Skagit, that understand how BC parks work. So I'm going to try to update everybody on whether we're legally allowed to get in there, that kind of thing. So, long story short, I would not plan a vacation around the Skagit, definitely the lower Skagit this year. It's just too up in the air. There might be a call to action if you guys and girls love this fishery and want to maybe put some money where your mouth is. Obviously, the priority for flood repair is not going to be some crazy cool little river up in the middle of nowhere. They're going to be focused on the highways, on the roads around the access points that are much more important. So I might be looking at seeing if a fundraiser could help move this process forward in a faster manner. I'm going to be careful about it. I'm going to be smart about it. I'm going to get my information before I talk to anyone about it. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you want to hear more about that. Leave a comment if you might be interested in partaking in either some volunteer work, maybe some cleanup stuff, or more likely some donation work where we donate some money to try to get the folks in transport as well as the Parks Board to speed up the process, because we think this is a resource worth getting access to sooner than later. Now, on the water levels front, because obviously then everyone's going to be saying, okay, where, if we can't go to the Skagit and go trout fishing, where can we go? I'm not going to list a bunch. Again, I'm really careful not to blow up little spots, and little creeks are very hard when they get high pressure. But the general spots to consider if you're planning a cool river trip is going to be the Thompson, is going to be the Birkenhead, is going to be sort of farther east. Heck, go to Cranbrook. There's some amazing stuff out that way. I'm going to plan a trip to actually all three of those, but the water levels look interesting. When we look at the lower mainland, so that when we're talking like Vetter/Chilliwack, the snowpack is still relatively high because it just hasn't had time to melt off. When we push into the Thompson, I'm going to throw some graphs up here. It actually looks like the snowpack's a little lower than it should be this time of year. And that's kind of crazy. That means that we might see some fishable water on more interior streams. Now, that's a gross generalization, but I'm just taking areas of snowpack, and I'm going to leave some links down below of what I look at so you can do the research on your creek or your stream to get an idea of what the snowpack is. I sort of pick the mountain that's closest to it and see where it is on averages, and then look at water levels in past years and those averages as well. I'm going to have more information on this. I know it's long-winded to go into this, but this is what I do when I'm planning out a river trip when it's early on in the season, because a lot of these rivers will not be fishable opening day / opening time frame in July 1, and you're going to have to gauge how far into end of July, August we need to go. My gut right now is that if we could fish the Skagit, it might actually be in shape sort of mid-July, but more so on the Thompson, I am hopeful that it'll be in shape sort of mid to end of July, early August, as well as your other rivers up Birkenhead Way, as well as more into the interior. I don't expect a crazy freshet, but we have been having a crazy year. So you're going to have to tune in with me a little bit closer to July 1. I'll do an assessment again. We'll look at the numbers. I'll break out the crystal ball and make my prediction. But I just wanted to give everybody a lay of the land going into it. So what else we're going to talk about this week? Well, I've already talked about what's coming up in lake fishing. Lake fishing is go time right now. We're having a glorious early lake season just because of the weather. And I've got reports everywhere. Check out that Skitchin trip if you want to get in with one of the masters. Phil, if you don't know who Phil is, he is written the book, him and Brian, on interior lake fishing, and I would kill actually to be on a week-long trip with him, getting to fish with him, just listening and hearing what he has to say, as well as where it is. Skitchin's really cool because it's very diverse. You can go to lakes that have big fish, you can go to lakes that have lots of fish, you can go to lakes that have challenging big fish scenarios, and as well as like a pretty diverse level of like alkaline levels, as well as fish numbers just in general. So long story short, you can take a lot of what you're going to learn at Skitchin, hearing of the guys fishing all the different lakes, hearing Phil analyze it, and then apply that to dozens of lakes around the province with similar biology. So highly recommended. Links down in the description if you want to get on that course. Again, it's not associated with Pacific Angler, but they're just good friends, and I do love Skitchinelodge as a great all-round fishing location. What else I got for you guys? We're going to tune in on Saltwater next week. We've got some reports there. We've got some interesting stuff coming down the pipes, and we're still hopeful that there's going to be openings, but I got no news yet. And also, we've got a fly from Andre, and this is a glassworm, and that's the kiss of death. Now, I'm not exactly sure how to spell this. Andre has spelled it wrong. The pronunciation on these buggers is very hard to get. I call it Canarborus. I probably butchered that. I totally jacked that name up. But these are glassworms. One of the hardest things when we see them come off on a lake, because they're very small, very clear, and the fish really have a hard time keying in on them. Andre has this pattern that he throws, and we thought we'd give this to you guys because it could be a good one to get in the box. Could save a trip. It's not going to put up 20, 30 fish, but it might turn a 0 into a 3 or 4 fish day, and that's better than nothing. So I'm going to leave links to that guy up here. I'm going to leave links to Yuri's Skagit video because it's freaking hilarious. And as always, you want to see more videos like this, considering the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to catch you in 2 weeks.